Okay, next item on the agenda is the budget process. And this is,
Yes. You have got a copy of last year's budget letter that I printed out for you to take a look at what it looked like and what the commission sent out last year, realizing that at least half of you are new. That this may be an opportunity for you to quickly review what the priorities were last year and what the format is. You may not need to do the same format, but part of the charge of this commission is to give the mayor and council some type of priorities for that you will present to them on behalf of neighbors. So maybe we can take a quick look at it.
and what type of time frame is this?
I think you need to establish an ad hoc committee to work on this between now and the May meeting. At the May meeting, you need to actually adopt the letter, and then I can deliver it to the mayor and council. And I also gave you a listing of all the community meetings that will be occurring starting May 4th.
Where's Chair?
Okay, so I'm noticing that last year's letter was sent out like about a week from now this year. Also noticing that though that last year they were 7 years into the mayoral thing. They had the process down. They started all these talks were in January and February, if I remember correctly. This year they're in May, which is a lot. This is a lot later than it was last year.
Actually, last year was the same period.
Really?
It used to be earlier.
That's,
Mayor Reed ran it during the month of May also. I think this year, the reason it's coming later is because you've got a series of council members that are also on a learning curve. And as a result, I think they asked the mayor to slow it down a bit as they catch up to what they're actually, a lot of their staff is brand new. And so I'm going to be coordinating the support for all 10 of these meetings. So that's a fun job.
May 4th to May 26th.
Correct. I think the only one that doesn't have a date assigned to it is D6.
Well, they don't have a location.
They don't have a
Location.
They have a date and no location.
Location yet. Yeah, I'm starting to work with facilities and the mayor's office I'll probably be there at least the majority of those. I know the commission at one point, and because of the pace of the work, had asked and discussed briefly the fact that you might have wanted to hold your own meetings out in the neighborhoods to gather budget information. At one point, there was a spot that Mayor Reed had for the commissioners to make comments saying, we're commissioners, if you have any further comments or would like to talk to us, that happened, I think, about 3 years ago. It hasn't happened since, but I wanted you to make sure to get on your calendars that these meetings are occurring. You can speak there as commissioners, and some of the commissioners have done that in the past. But the more important piece is the letter that you should put together. Talk to your groups between now and the May meeting, try to get some input back. I'll give you my overview of what's going on right now. It's unlike Mayor Reed's time of austerity. Right now, you've got wealth of some kind. It's called a surplus. And so
0.5% of the budget. Very, very small surplus.
Right. I'm not sure if the word surplus is quite correct, but anyway, at the last meeting that you came to in March, I passed out the mayor's budget message, and that laid out all his priorities. I think it's May 1st, the city manager responds with what they're going to recommend to council to consider for the actual spending budget for next year. So the fact of the matter is that everything that seems to be discussed right now is adding more police officers, adding more community service officers, reopening hours in all the libraries, restoring them to 2011 levels. A lot of what you actually see in the letter from last year is now coming to fruition of some kind under the recommendations of what the mayor is suggesting. So what you're going to have to discuss among yourselves is what is it that you see that you can recommend and support in the budget, you know, from this commission to say the community definitely supports this or that, or this isn't mentioned, you know. Last year you actually added an amendment to the letter regarding the keeping open one of the fire stations. And I didn't bring a copy of that, but the point of the matter is there's no talk of closing fire stations or not dealing with any of the things that were issues in the year before. The interesting thing that usually happens in a flush year is that the attendance at the community budget meetings goes down, mainly because people aren't faced with a crisis. So we'll have to wait and see how that comes into play. But you don't have an urgency that's appeared in the last few years. So you really need to focus on what it is that you're seeing either among your neighborhood groups, yourselves, or what the mayor is recommending that you think is important for the city to achieve. So I'm actually curious as to what the commissioners are thinking are priorities.
So in District 6, we had a discussion of the budget about 2 weeks ago, so I actually had to read the mayor's budget first and kind of make PowerPoint charts to explain that to everybody else. And they talk about getting an extra $83 million to increase the police and hire more community service officers and improve the streets, but they're expecting to get that money from a sales tax that they hope to put on the ballot next year, and also a share of the DTA transportation tax, which is also another sales tax that will be on the ballot next year. So if either or both of them don't pass, then that $83 million, is 83 or 53, some number of millions of dollars goes away, and then you don't get the rosy picture that we have here. So it's kind of a conditional thing here.
Based on a tax.
On a tax that they've not even gotten around to proposing to put on the ballot yet.
Well, this commission recommended such a move if you read through the narratives there. Actually, I think you've recommended it almost 2 years in a row for the road maintenance and improvement.
I'm just kind of reminding, I'm just trying to remember what was in the budget here. I'm just saying it was conditional on these things. And then it also said that if we get that money, it doesn't include anything for, and then there's a whole page of things that would have liked, you know, like park improvements and maintenance and all these other things. This is still, even if we get that money, it's not included. So it's quite a long list of what it doesn't cover.
Right. That's why I'm saying you may have a tougher time in terms of prioritizing. I think it'll be easy to say you support certain things like the reopening of the library hours and things like that, but then you also need to kind of take into consideration, you know, future staffing costs. I mean, it's not just simply saying we're going to open it up this year and thank you very much, but then you've also got all the costs on maintaining that presence over the course of the next, you know, decade or longer. So if you look at it from that perspective, you know, you really have to kind of focus in the same thing with hiring of police officers. If you want to bring it back up to the 200-300 that you've lost, which is kind of the recommendation, that all comes with cost, you know, and where's the money going to come from? Because the reality is, it looks like the projection runs flat for the next 5 years or something like that. I mean, read through what the mayor's budget message was, I'll try to get some more information between now and then, but I think that you always look at the gimmies, you know, give me this, give me that, and then beyond a certain point, who's gonna pay for it? So, I'm not being pessimistic, but I'm saying, put your recommendations in light of what's reality-based.
Okay, so one of the things in the budget is to try to improve the ongoing budget by getting more tax revenues, by maintaining commercial land for commerce rather than converting it over to residential. And because when you have houses, you end up losing money because you provide library service and police and so forth. You get the money by having sales tax, property taxes on the businesses, but right now, there's a housing shortage, so developers like to build houses, and then you end up having a worse budget in subsequent years. And so one of the items in here is to continue the recent program of not converting commercial to residential. And then there are 12 different issues before the city council to convert commercial to residential. So that's what our District 6 letter is going to say is, read your own budget and follow it. Don't convert everything from commercial to residential.
Yeah, one of the things that emerged last year, and I attended half of the budget meetings, Alden and Valley and other places, the issues came up about revenue generation, which is, it's not enough to go ahead and tax yourself. You really need to build in an infrastructure that maintains growth, you know. So that's why jobs are important, and to your point about, you know, no more residential or whatever, you know, where do you put in manufacturing, where do you take jobs? But the other issue was interesting because it came out in the auditor's report, which is, this is not a business-friendly city. The auditor brought up the issue about permits and how the lines in there, you know, and I've been seeing this the last couple of weeks, lines go 15 long deep. And, you know, that people complain about the fact that they go to Saratoga, they go to Campbell or someplace else because they don't want to do business in the city, and because it's just such an onerous, you know, process. So, you know, you might want to include something about, in order to go ahead and maintain whatever, you know, we need to look at certain sections of it, you know, including part of what the auditor recommended, which was, you know, improving the permit process and other things. I'm just giving you my observations.
And one of the items in here was a small amount of money to improve the computer system for the permit department. But right now you have something that's so obsolete, you have to go off and swap hard drives in order to be able to look up old permits. And
4-year process.
Huh?
It was 4 years when I left a year ago to replace that.
Wow.
Yeah.
So
It's not that there's not money.
okay, so Matt first.
Yeah, the comment I wanted to add to amplify something that Ernest said is, I don't know if anybody else here would have watched the broadcast of the council study session that was held on this, but it was, you know, compared to prior years, it was night and day in terms of the amount of public comment that they got. You know, last year there were people with pitchforks and torches and, you know, trying to protect their own little bit of turf. This year was sort of, oh, yeah, 3 people spoke and said, much more awesome. That was
Oh,
about
is
it.
that the meeting that happened? Yeah, because one of the items was the chair of the Human Services Commission. We meant to set up the agenda for next week, and he said, you told me to go to that budget study session. Only 3 people showed up.
Yeah,
Exactly. And I said, wow. And that's why I was just making the comment that I'm waiting to see what's going to happen out in the community, because it's a flush year. Everybody's saying the right things. It's like, I'm going to give you more police. I really have more money to throw at the solutions. And I'm being pragmatic in that I've seen the cycles. I think, Joe, you've seen them too, where you get the people with the pitchfork and the fires, and they all want to, you know, why are you closing my libraries? You know, I have no place for my child to go to. I can't, my parks are unclean, you know, on and on and on. But I think a lesson that the neighborhood should learn is that, you know, you've all stepped up to clean your parks and to, you know, fill in where you can. But it's always to me, it seems like, and it's cyclical here. Tech goes on a boom, everybody gets rich, and then all of a sudden, you know, the city government's always the last to come out of it. That's just the way it goes. But the commission might consider giving some sensible development of, you know, I hate to say it's almost like Chuck Reed, but, you know, it's like, not because it's like Chuck Reed, but it's like to be kind of thinking about the future in terms of revenue enhancement. I think if you send in a letter that simply says, we support the opening of the library hour, we support this, we support that, that's terrific, but it's not about giving some thought to where you're going to be paying for this somewhere in the future. Even the fact that if you say you ought to maintain a reserve of a certain amount of money, because we know it's ups and downs. I'm staff, so I'm just starting the discussion. I'm not making these as recommendations, but I think that you ought to have a small committee that I'd be happy to sit and work with, and
Okay.
you need to develop a draft of a letter.
So right now I'm trying to get a sense, if we have to have a draft of a letter by next time,
Yeah.
it's nice to know what the letter, what the theme is, what our thoughts are. I mean, I don't just write a letter, hi, mayor, council,
I
here's our
understand.
letter, thank you, signed in. You have some content to it. I'm trying to get out of content, so, David.
First a comment and then a question, if I may.
Okay.
Comment. We have a little less than half an hour to go around the room, if you would, and solicit who might be interested in helping write that and be a part of an ad hoc committee to draft and study and put together in a small group. And the second question would be, or the question might be, if that committee works between now and then and wants to engage other members of the commission by email with, here's what we're thinking, what are your thoughts, or what do you have to input, or how do you feel about that? Would we be violating the Brown Act and
Yeah,
operating outside of,
You
Protocol.
can't carry on that conversation outside of the view of.
so whatever group we pick to write that letter,
Right.
does it kind of in a vacuum, without the commission and without community input?
No, what you can do is pull together a meeting between now and then for people interested to give input into that letter.
Oh, would that be public?
It's all
Or
going to be
commission.
public. It's all going to be public. But an ad hoc committee requires only 3 days' notice to meet. And, I mean, as an ad hoc committee, you could meet here and then invite other commissioners to come in and, you know, to say, what do you guys got, you know? Here's my comments on it.
That was my question. If this is a commission, it'd be nice that everybody be engaged in this process. If nothing more to say, that looks good, or correct the spelling. And between now and the next time, how would that be, how could that work in a way that doesn't,
As long as you don't talk to each other, if you send me a copy of it, you send me the draft of it, then any commissioner that has a comment can send me the comment. You can't talk amongst yourselves, because then that becomes an official commission meeting.
got it?
And then to the ad hoc committee, I'll send back the comments from the other commissioners for you to review. Yeah, the moment you start talking among yourselves, you're out of compliance with the Brown Act.
Thank you. Did I see some other hands raised?
So I live in District 8 in Evergreen and crime. So we've had a rash of car break-ins, a couple muggings, which may be sort of standard issue in other parts of San Jose. But where we are, it's a rarity, has been a rarity, and is now becoming pretty common. Also, development of retail space at Evergreen Community College is been raised a couple times. So it's sort of the opposite of the housing question. And
So you don't want the retail, or?
we don't want retail. We're sort of neutral about housing, I suppose.
Which
And-
college, Evergreen College?
Yeah.
Okay.
Those are just, well, they're not for official, for us to put in the letter at this point. I'm just commenting that those are some things that have come up in my daily
It
conversations.
hasn't issued, it hasn't even reached the city level yet. still within the community college district.
One thing at the budget exercises, it wasn't budget game this time, it was a budget exercise. We had a list of 30-some things to split our money. You have $100, buy any of these 30 things, and I split on amongst most of them. They're all, I thought, were important things. And then I added a few, I had a bunch of blank lines, so I added one line at the end, was to include a little bit of money to implement, to write the codes for the Vision 2040. I mean, they went through all that exercise of doing all that thing for 5 years, 4 or 5 years. Okay, here's our recommendation for the riparian corridor policy. We don't get around to doing it yet. So finish that up, and there are probably some other loose ends in there too. So I think that was part of it. So I definitely agree with the thing about spending a few $1,000s to get the new computer for the permit department so they can go through the thing quickly and get it to. I don't want the permits to go through so fast that nobody has a chance to think about them and review them, but I don't want them tied up needlessly because, oh, we have to dig up a crate of boxes out of the warehouse and find a piece of paper anymore.
So as a part of the budget process, last year there was a subcommittee that worked on it.
Yes.
So is that a standing subcommittee or is
No,
it was?
no. It's not a committee that we're just about getting ready to form.
So
I was going to be on it. I was going to volunteer to be on it because I've read the thing once and I'm curious.
Well, I think
I'd like
it's
to be on
important, and actually I would then suggest that one of the things that we look at for next year is that we actually create a standing budget subcommittee and really think about it as a year-round process and not just a 1-month scramble. Because I think then you can be more thoughtful about really what's going on. And then the other question I had, Ernest, is how does the CIP fit into this? Because there's a whole process going with that. And one of the things coming out of the general plan was to actually make the CIP more community-based. Oh, I'm sorry, capital improvement program. So pavement fits in part of that, but it's also building new buildings, bridges, all that sort of stuff, the infrastructure. And that same sort of thing is to be thinking about that on a year-round basis and be thoughtful about where the city's growing, and I think that's a logical place for this commission to be involved in.
Yeah, the CIP hasn't been a part of this process, mainly because it's been pretty reactive in terms of all the needs. And so it's always been about addressing.
But that's, going to Larry's point, that was one of the general plan points, is the money that comes to pay for the CIP is from new development, and it needs to serve the needs of where the new development's coming to actually get ahead of it and not be so reactive.
Yeah, I mean, you can always form a standing committee.
I thought we were limited.
The way, that's exactly right.
And that's why we didn't, because we went through that whole exercise of commissions and not allowed to have committees.
Yeah, they actually don't want them.
Well, we're a very different commission, so maybe we should ask for something different.
Yeah, the clerk was really adamant. They didn't want any commissions standing. As it is, this group has kind of has an independence in setting up committees. So you're ahead of the curve, but yeah, every other group that's a board or commission has been told they cannot have committees. So, except ad hoc, because they're 6-month in duration, and
So every 7 months we set up a 6-month thing, and might have a different change when people.
Put on that one.
Matt, did you have a question?
Well, I was going to point out that they put heavy pressure on us not to have standing committees, but I've also recently seen the council take an action of declaring a committee as a ad hoc committee of the whole, so that they would not have Brown Act violations if more than a quorum showed up.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's the adage of don't do as I say, or how is that? Don't do as I say.
Well,
Do as I do.
I think it's maybe the little bit of then twist is then maybe it's as a part of our work plan that we put that into our regular meeting schedule and less of people talking at us, but actually then use this meeting as an opportunity to do that.
You can do that.
We have charged the agenda, generally, occasionally, to some extent.
So do what now then? I'm sorry.
Yes.
We would put on the agenda as, maybe it's every other month, discussions about the budget and priorities and what we would want to do for the coming and following year as a standing item. And we use that as part of our direction, what we want to be working on.
Right,
So-
and it's gonna change one more time, the budget process. As, if you're not aware yet, I didn't sit in on the budget discussion at the mayor's, even though I helped put it together, I never sit in the actual discussions. I mean, the mayor, if you read his book, which I recommend, if you don't, I can get copies for everybody. He wants to do two things more than likely next year. One is called zero budgeting, which he really, really wants to do. And that's where you take a whole department. And as opposed to rolling over a budget like they normally do, like this item was last year, it's been there for 20 years, we just roll it over. He starts from scratch. So that's going to be a totally new and innovative,
Traumatic.
very dramatic, and particularly what I've heard is he's looking to do a major, huge department. So that'll be a shocking new adventure. The second part of what he wants to do, and I believe he was going to explain it to you, and I think he probably has at the budget meeting. If he hasn't, it's something along these lines, and it is in his book. He wants to do, with $2 to $4 million, he wants to break it down by council district and give that amount of money, or even at the mayor's budget meeting, and actually have you spend the money, make recommendations, which would be a very dramatic new way of looking at involving community in the budget process. So would
Yeah,
be,
it's a $2.5 million essential services reserve that each of the 10 council districts can each get 1/10 of if they choose to do it. And so it depends upon
Right.
council district to council district, that if they choose to give the $250K, then they can prioritize it themselves.
exactly, and that's why he's giving you all the signs that this will,
I kind of think some council members might not want to do it because they want to have control over it themselves rather than have the public have a chance to say, or it
Right.
varies council member to council member, I imagine.
Yeah.
I'm just saying that I think that the way he's going, all the signs are that this will happen next year.
Well, this is this year's budget.
Yeah,
We're setting the groundwork.
so,
For next year.
With the $250K
Yeah.
to do something this year.
It's the start.
so just be prepared.
So I think we should have a subcommittee, an ad hoc subcommittee. I recommend that we meet in about 2 weeks.
Sure.
Would that be a good time? And
Yeah, just,
who would like to be on the subcommittee? And is there a limit on how many we can have on the subcommittee?
as long as you don't hit a quorum.
Or I mean, if it's an ad hoc, I'm giving you 2 weeks' notice, you can actually post it so we
Right.
can have a quorum,
You
right?
could have a quorum.
If we want to.
I don't think you want all the commission there. The moment you hit a quorum, then it becomes an official commission meeting.
Okay.
So,
Unless you're
You want about a 6-member committee?
Yeah, it's up to you. I think that you had a 5-member committee, right? 5, 6-member? That seems
Up to
about
9.
right. Yeah, you were on.
Matt's one.
Matt, you want to be on it? Joe, you want to be on it?
So that's Matt.
I may pass for a year, but
Okay.
I'm very interested, but next
You
couple
wanna
weeks
be
are
on it?
crazy.
Yes.
You got Robert, Matt, well,
Yeah, I'm going to be on it.
Larry.
Dearborn.
You want to be on it, Dave? You were on the last one. Do you want to do it?
I'd like to see other commissioners take an active
Yeah.
role. And by the way,
Maria.
to show up for a meeting when you call one is one thing. But you have to participate in all of the email exchange, read what you get,
Yeah.
and be an active partner in it, not say you want to join, never show up, and never answer emails. This last ad hoc committee was blessed with having everybody read, everybody answer, and everybody add something constructive. But that was a rare occasion.
So you need probably at least another 2 if you
Some
can
looking
get 2
around.
more people.
You want to do it?
What about the,
I'm interested, but I still feel a little green, but,
Sure.
No, money's green too, right?
Sure.
Any input you can
Sure,
give
put me on,
is,
put me on.
it's not being
Let's do it.
green.
By the way, if I may, green
Maria,
is good, and it's a way to learn.
Sure.
How else, I mean,
Right.
you're only on here for 4 years, maybe 8, whatever. But the bottom line is, how else are you gonna learn except to step up, get engaged?
You are
And
right.
that's, and everybody's teaching everybody else.
Well, you've got 4,
That's-
I think that's enough to start.
that's enough?
And then just, work from there. If anybody else wants to join, let Larry or myself know.
Maria or?
Nora? Norma?
No, I was just.
No?
Okay.
Okay.
I'm dated, that's.
You can always volunteer someone that's not here.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
I'm just,
I want to make sure I got everybody looking,
Give it to
I'm
Mike.
trying to look at everybody. Pete, you want to do anything?
So
Moses,
when are you thinking about starting that? Like the last week of April?
So,
Like the week of the 27th?
yeah, probably. Week of the 21st, I think.
give me a second to get my calendar open. I was looking at, see, right now is the 8th, I just moved forward 2 weeks, and that's
The
the
22nd?
22nd. So 22nd, 23rd, 22nd, 23rd, one of those, Wednesday or Thursday, evening.
I'll get you guys a room.
I'll do it if we could do it on, if it's on Thursday, I can do it, otherwise I've got other commitments on the
So
Wednesday.
do it on the Thursday, you want to come then?
I will jump in.
Okay, excellent.
Sounds good.
Kathleen and I will go be green together.
Yes.
Okay,
Going green.
Thursday the 23rd.
I've got Matt, Robert, Larry, Kathleen, Joe. That's it?
Yep.
that's it?
Great, okay. I'll look for a spot the 23rd. What time, 6:30?
That good for everybody?
All right,
6:30.
I'll send out a notice, let you guys know where you're gonna meet.
If I may,
Can I get everybody's email address afterwards, so I can, or you can send me the email
Yeah,
addresses?
sounds good.
would it be permissible if members of the commission email Larry with things they'd like to see or comments or suggestions?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So everybody can be engaged, just feed it one way.
Yeah, actually, why don't you take that on as a task? You don't need to come to the meeting, but if you can't before the meeting, you have an idea, or just something you support, let's open the library hours, whatever, send them to Larry and he can compile it with that, okay?
So I'll collect input from everybody. In 2 weeks, our committee, our ad hoc committee meets here to discuss this. That is before any of these budget meeting things. So we'll have some thoughts of our own, then we can go to some of these
Right.
budget hearing things. Our next meeting is when, May?
It's on the back of the
13th.
agenda. May 13th.
May 13th. So there are 3 budget meetings beforehand, but if we're gonna have a letter that we're gonna vote on, we should be pretty much have our letter in the next week after that, May 30th.
Yeah, you're not gonna get any into the input from the community meetings, but I mean, that's okay, you represent the neighborhoods. You don't need to be in jive with, all the stuff, and they're gonna be meeting till the end of May. You gotta get your letter out the door by May 13th. Because you missed the vote.
But then we have to go through the legal process and that ties up for another 2 months. How can we possibly do this? Are they gonna do a rewrite on us again? Or- This is our letter that we wanna say what people have always.
You've never had a rewrite on them, I always run them by the attorney.
Huh?
You've never had a rewrite on them. You sent out like 4 letters.
And they've all gone straight from the commission to Ernest.
Back to legal, and then they
No,
had said we
never
had to go back and add an extra half a page to it.
Yeah,
Larry,
But
enough of that.
you know what they did, what they did to our ad hoc committee report where Larry said they redlined everything except the names? They used synonyms, they didn't really change
Yeah.
the substantive data on the report at all. And that is why it became so frustrating.
I don't miss it.
That's history.
I don't miss it.
History, thank you.
That's history.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
These
Forward.
budget letters were put together by a small committee that wrote it, approved it, passed it around amongst ourselves, gave it to Ernest and the commission.
Yeah,
Said, thank
you
you
know-
very much, done.
Yeah.
I do run them by the attorney's never made a comment on, because they're looking for things that you're asserting that you can do, that you're just making recommendations, I mean, that's it. Yeah. They don't argue with you, what do you mean they want more library hours? They don't care about what you're saying. Just want to make sure you're not illegally saying, well, you know what? The way we're gonna fund the library hours is by going out and robbing gas stations. You can't say that.
Okay, so we have an ad hoc committee that'll meet in 2 weeks here, and then the next week we'll exchange emails amongst ourselves and have a draft letter that we'll send out through Ernest to everybody.
Right,
So that
right.
at May 13th, next month, we can all say, yes, it's a beautiful letter, and go on, or
That-
recommend these quick changes. We'll have one last meeting of the ad hoc committee the day afterwards to finalize everything, to make sure that anything changes.
Actually, if it's done that far in advance and it's not anything that's gonna be controversial, you can actually do it that evening.
Okay,
You know, just make the small edits and you're done.
okay, looking forward to getting, streamlining our ad hoc process here. Okay, so that's this.